Hi everyone, I'm back after a bit of a break. The end of April through May was a pretty busy time for me, so I didn't get much time to work on the game. I chipped away at it where I could, but I'm now back to working on it after work and wanted to share some of the progress I've made since the last update. One of the biggest changes I made was to the character. I did like the original design, but I wanted to eventually add some personality, and I felt a bit limited by the facial features I had, so I overhauled them. Most notably, I added eyebrows and a completely new mouth. I wanted the mouth to be part of the head mesh so I could animate the facial expressions and have NPCs react to the events happening around them. And with these new features, it gives me more freedom to show their emotion. To achieve this, I removed the old mouth and began adding some edge loops where the mouth would be. Then, because my character had a solidify modifier, it added some thickness to the lips which made it look a little bit more natural. Because I knew the characters would have their mouths open, I added some teeth so it didn't look like the store was going to be filled with gummy joes. With the new face, I created several blend shapes for different expressions like happiness, sadness, and even existential dread, and I'm happy how they turned out. I use blend shapes because I want facial animations to show even when the characters are walking around the store. For example, if a customer is searching for an item and they can't find it, the frustration blend shape will slowly increase. I plan to build on this system later, but it feels like a solid foundation for now. Back in Unity, I started working on a time schedule. The store will have set opening hours with some time before and after for prep work like stocking shelves, hiring staff, and cleaning. The goal is to grow your store as much as possible, but that growth can only happen through sales during the opening hours. So if you don't finish your prep in time, your shelves may be empty when the customers arrive, which will hurt your day's performance. This is meant to add some time pressure and force the player to prioritize tasks. To support this, I added a basic day-night cycle and a time manager that tracks store hours and when admin tasks can be completed. I'm still trying to lock down the art style. I have zero art knowledge and have no idea how to build a world that actually looks good. I've been experimenting with the Toony Colors Pro 2 asset pack, but honestly, it just feels like I'm trying to fit Lego pieces into a jigsaw puzzle, and it's not clicking at all for me. But then I came across Imphenzia, who some of you might already know. He has a very efficient texture atlas called Pixpal, and it uses shader magic to create effects like reflections, shiny surfaces, and even RGB lighting, all from a single texture. The process involves collapsing all UVs into one point on the texture atlas. I converted all my objects to use this single material, and it is working great so far, but I'm still unsure if I'll stick with it. This style might be better suited for 2D or isometric games, and I worry that it might be too flat for larger models, but I'm continuing with it for now and may find a solution to complement the texture later. I've mentioned in previous videos that I wanted a goal or task system to help guide the player throughout the day and add a bit of pressure. My first attempt was clunky and not at all scalable. Each new task felt like it needed a workaround. I then switched to scriptable objects, which did help, but I still felt quite limited. There wasn't an easy way to check for specific conditions. For example, if we wanted to recall an item, I found that I kept creating new dependencies which were hard to maintain. But then I found Trevor from Shape by Rain Studios. And at first, I didn't think his RPG style quest system would fit my game, but after watching a few of his videos, I decided to try it out, and I'm really glad I did. Trevor's tutorials were some of the best I've ever seen. Everything is explained clearly and he's super active in the comments addressing bugs and questions. I implemented this system and rebranded it as goals in my game. I've set up 5 so far and it's been incredibly easy to hook them into the system. For example, for the product recall goal I mentioned earlier, I can set up a goal to specify the recalled items, spawn a recall zone in the store, and allow players to drop those items off. Everything is neatly connected and the logic makes sense to me. It finally feels like a scalable, maintainable system. These goals can come from customers in store or via the in-game emailing system where head office will send you tasks. Since this could add up to a lot of goals, I also followed Trevor's guide on adding a quest log, though I tweaked it a bit for my own needs. It keeps track of all the active goals so that the player always knows what they're working on. Some goals will build customer favor, while others will benefit the store as a whole. I also want to add consequences for failing these goals, and the system should be easy to modify for that. The UI is more suited to an RPG style questing system currently, but I'll eventually tweak it for my own game and have it fit into my style. Lastly, I added a dialogue system. I don't want this to be a dialogue heavy game, but I do think it's valuable to have some simple interactions, especially now that the characters have expressive faces. The player can check in on a customer to get a sense of how they're feeling. Maybe the customer is looking for a specific item and tells you what they need. Once again, Trevor came through with a really robust system that uses ink for the dialogue logic. This lets me keep the conversation logic separate from the NPC scripts, and I can customize the text using rich text tags, allowing me to set parameters such as color, font, and even text formatting. It's clean, scalable, and easy to use. You can also use tags to set character names, portraits, and even customize the layout of the dialogue panel. I may keep the names, however I'm not sure the portrait and layout changes suit the game I'm making, so I'll probably end up removing this functionality as I flesh it out. So I now have a lot of the core systems in place, which means I can finally start working on the core gameplay loop, I still need to settle on an art style, but I'll keep experimenting and hopefully find something that fits. I think I'm at a point now where I can start building the early game experience. I want players to start small and work their way up to a big store. There are a lot of retail sim games out there, but I want this one to stand out by leaning more into the arcade style mechanics rather than being a pure simulation. I've got some fun ideas for the staff and customer interactions, and I think they'll be entertaining, but I'll test them first before I show them off. And until then, I'll keep working on the game and only upload videos when there's something meaningful to share. I was pushing for updates every 2 weeks before, but now I want to focus on quality over consistency. So if anybody has any questions for me about the game or would like to make any suggestions, please feel free to reach out to me in the comments. And as always, if you're interested in seeing the development process for Retail Rampage from start to finish, consider subscribing and follow the journey. Thanks for the patience with this one, and I'll see you in the next update.